Jeremiah was a priest and lived a quite ordinary life. He was a scholarly man. He liked to research things and he liked to write. Tradition says that as well as the book of Jeremiah, he wrote Lamentations and he also wrote First and Second Kings. And early in his life, God called him to be a prophet. Now, we have a different idea of prophecy than they had back then, or that Jewish people have to this day, in fact. We think of prophets as people who foretell the future. But for Jeremiah, prophecy meant that his task was to discern the law of God at work in the ordinary lives of the ordinary people around him. And for him, this was not a pleasant task because he was called to be a prophet at a time when Israel was sliding into sort of moral degeneracy. The only thing that made Israel an independent nation was the culture that they had based on their distinctive religion and their distinctive view of the law of God. That gave them their strength and it gave them their difference. But that strength and difference had been eroded because instead of sticking to the law, they had allowed themselves to become influenced by the various pagan religions around them. And while some of those pagan religions were all well and good, some of them were involved in things which would make a hair stand on end. There was human sacrifice, particularly child sacrifice, and some of the practices in their temples. We don't need to go into on a family show on a Sunday morning. But Jeremiah's task was to say to his people, stick to your guns, stick to the law, and don't allow yourselves to be corrupted by all of this stuff. And it was an unpopular message. And Jeremiah had to proclaim this for years and years and years. And he proclaimed it by word and he proclaimed it by deed. He did symbolic actions. And one of the actions he did was he wore a yoke, that you put on an oxen. He wore it round to say, this is the yoke that God is laying on us. Because we have wandered from the thing which gives us our strength, the king of Persia will take us over and exile us, which is actually what happened. But in the face of this, false prophets arose, and one of these is mentioned this morning, Hananiah, and he proclaimed what people wanted to hear, that, oh, you're not so bad after all, God will let you all off. And he took the yoke from off Jeremiah's shoulders and broke it in front of all the people. And Jeremiah said, well, there's nobody wishes that your words were more true than me, he said, but I don't think they are. And the way we'll find out is we'll wait and see what happens. And in the end, it was Jeremiah that was proved to be right. Now, there's messages you could take from this. Poor old Jeremiah, the most unpopular man in all of Israel, and a terrible life that he lived because he stuck to his guns and was true to what he knew to be the basis of Israel's culture and strength. And you could say, well, here's a lesson of perseverance. But I think that would be too shallow. There is another couple of lessons which I think are more powerful. And one is that what we do is influenced very much by what's at the heart of us, what's deeply at the core. And I'm mindful of an old woman I knew once. She was somebody who lived in one of the towns in which I ministered, and she was a very upright, very prim and proper lady, and butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, and she commanded her family with sort of an imperiousness and did everything that was right and good. And I encountered her many, many years later when I visited an old folks' home, and there she was. And she'd had a personality transformation. She swore like a trooper. She threw things at the staff. They were scared to come near her because she would hit them. And it did occur to me that what we were seeing in the old folks' home wasn't a form of madness. It was actually who she was. This was who she really was. And that the veneer of gentility and goodness that lay over the top of that had been taken away by her dementia. And we saw the core. And it's what's at the core of us, which is really important. And it's what's at the core of us will be reflected in the way we treat other people and the way we treat the earth and the way we treat God and who we actually are. And the message from the epistle is that, we hear this and we think, oh, well, I better brush up my behavior, but that's not the point. You can't change the core of you really by trying to be good. The message of the gospel is to allow Christ to transform you from within. And this will seep out and be reflected in the way you are in the world, the way you act with other people, the way you treat the earth, the way you treat God. And the call on us is not to gird up our loins and try to be as good as we can. The call on us is to allow Christ to change us, to make us into the people that he knows we can be. And there's another message too, which I quite like from the book of Jeremiah. And that is that here, the most unpopular man in all of Israel is the one who has the truth. And here's something which runs through the Bible from beginning to end. And that is that the most unlikely people are often the ambassadors of truth, the ones whom everybody else looks down on and marginalizes and pushes to the edge and takes no notice of. They are often the ones who have the word of God. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why many people find them so unpopular. So I guess for me, this morning I read this passage and it's a call again to allow Christ to continue the transforming work which he's been doing in me for a very long time. But also the call is to look around me and ask myself, where is the voice of God sounding? And perhaps it's amongst those people whom I very easily dismiss. Amen.